Why was she still lying in the dirt? The Arizona sun pressed down like a weight, baking the sand until it shimmered in the heat. It clung to her tongue, mixed with the copper taste of blood, and burned her eyes until everything blurred. She could feel the grit under her fingernails, the sting in her split lip, the slow throb in her ribs where the boot had landed. And above her, blocking out the sky, Marcus Webb stood like a monument carved for recruitment posters, his shadow tall, his combat boot poised for another kick. "Get up, John." His voice was too loud for the still morning, carrying that special kind of authority you only heard from people who'd never been told no. She didn't move fast enough. The laughter started in a ripple and spread until it surrounded her, bouncing off the walls of the obstacle course. She could pick out voices now: Jennifer Walsh's sharp, glassy giggle, Derek Santis's deeper chuckle, the mockery of people who thought they were untouchable. "Maybe she needs a different school," Derek called. "Ballet's nice this time of year. Tiaras and tutus perfect for her." Another round of laughter. Maya pushed up on her elbows, the motion making her ribs scream. She was 5'4", maybe 120 soaking wet, and next to them she looked like a child in borrowed gear. Marcus crouched just enough to grip the collar of her uniform, his sneer a mask he wore well. "Show us those killer moves they supposedly taught you." What was it? Some community college ROTC? His hand closed around her collar, and her body almost reacted on its own. Right hand shifting toward his wrist, left hand twitching toward the nerve cluster just below his ear, a strike that could end him in seconds. Her eyes went flat, all warmth stripped away. She stopped herself. Letting her muscles go slack, she stayed limp in his grip. She even added a whimper for effect. He hauled her up, shoved her backward. She fell again, deliberately awkward. "Pathetic," he muttered. Turning to make sure everyone saw his victory dot, she stayed down this time, breathing in the dust. Let them think she was weak. Let them laugh. Marcus gestured at the assembled cadets, most of them children of generals, senators, and power brokers. Blackwater Military Academy wasn't just any school. It was a finishing ground for the country's future military elite. Marcus himself was the son of General Patricia Webb, 3 wars, and a chest full of medals. Jennifer Walsh's father ran naval intelligence. Derek Santis's father practically owned half the defense contracts in the Southwest. And then there was Maya Chun, supposedly the daughter of a small-town sheriff from Oregon, admitted on a diversity scholarship no one could quite explain. "You're a mistake," Marcus said, circling her like he was deciding which angle to strike from next. "Someone mixed up your file. You don't belong here." She kept her eyes down, but her mind was cataloging details. The way Marcus favored his left leg old injury, likely football. Jennifer's subtle hand tremor stimulant use. The expensive watch on Derek's wrist, definitely not standard. Cadet issue. From the shade near the equipment shed, she caught a different kind of stare. Staff Sergeant Carlos Rodriguez, former Army Ranger. Afghanistan, Iraq. His eyes weren't mocking. They were studying. That was dangerous. Jennifer's voice dripped sugar. "Maybe we should help her pack. There's a nice desk job somewhere safe." Perfect for her skill set. Some cadets laughed. Some didn't. Maya filed that away. Slowly, she stood, favoring her left side for show. Wiped the blood from her lip, smearing it across her cheek. "I'm sorry," she murmured. "I'll try harder tomorrow." Marcus's laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. "Tomorrow? Sweetheart, if you can't handle this, you'll never survive advanced ops, weapons training, or PSU war." Her eyes lifted to his for just a flicker, enough to make him hesitate before the watery, defeated look returned. "I just want to serve my country." The mocking started again, but Rodriguez's voice cut through it like a blade. "Shows. Over. Webb, Santis, wash equipment maintenance duty. The rest of you, showers. Mess hall in 30. They dispersed. Rodriguez stepped closer, boots crunching in the sand. "Chun, a word." She nodded, head low. "Yes, sir." When the others were gone, he said, "That was quite a fall you took." "I know, sir. I need to work on my balance." "Funny thing about balance," he said. "Most people put their hands out to catch themselves. You didn't. You moved. Like someone trained to take a hit." She forced her expression blank. "I don't understand, sir." His stare lingered for a long moment. "Maybe not, but I'll be watching you." As he walked away, she allowed herself the smallest smile. Let him watch. By the time anyone figured her out, it would be too late. 3 weeks later, her reputation as the Academy's weakest cadet had only solidified. Last in every run, fumbling with rifle assembly, making mistakes in tactical drills that got. Her simulated teammates killed Jennifer Walsh, made sure everyone knew the latest. Embarrassment. I heard she cried during interrogation resistance. Tears and everything. Maya sat alone at breakfast, shoulders slumped, uniform slightly rumpled. To anyone watching, she looked defeated. What they didn't see was the microcamera hidden in her collar button or the listening device she'd planted yesterday near the officer's table, or the access she'd gained by accidentally crashing the Academy's computer system. Sarah Martinez, her bunkmate, spoke quietly to Marcus. "Maybe we should—" "Don't," Marcus snapped. "The weak don't survive here. And she's not supposed to be here anyway." That was new. Maya kept eating, listening as Marcus lowered his voice. Her file just appeared a month before term. No military history, no sports, nothing. Waiting lists 3 years long. Someone either wanted her here bad or made a mistake. She filed it away. Phantom Division's forges were the best, but apparently not perfect. When the mess hall emptied, she lagged behind, slipping into the service corridors. She moved like a different person, now shoulders squared, steps silent. The tunnel system was a relic from the Cold War, not on any official maps. She reached the server room beneath administration biometric locks, motion sensors, pressure force. She pulled a device from her uniform pocket, its tech non-existent on paper. The scanner read her fingerprints as belonging to Dr. Elizabeth Hawthorne, head of IT, thanks to a coffee cup fingerprint lift that had taken months to set up. Inside, she didn't steal data too traceable. She installed monitoring software that would piggyback on the Academy's own systems. Invisible to security sweeps, her next target, Colonel Harrison's office. Through ventilation ducts, she photographed personnel files, Pentagon communications, and most importantly, financial records showing secret payments to offshore accounts. Then she heard boots. 2 sets. Harrison's gait she recognized. The other Rodriguez. "Buyers are getting impatient," Harrison said. "The merchandise is delicate," Rodriguez replied. "One mistake and we lose everything." They entered. Maya clung too. The beams above the door, weight perfectly distributed to avoid sensors. "The Chun girl is a problem," Rodriguez said. "Not what she seems. Her failures are too perfect. Today I saw her start a defensive move straight out of classified manuals." "You think she's intel?" Harrison asked. "Worse," Rodriguez whispered. "Black ops. Deep cover." "Then we eliminate the problem tonight," Harrison said. They discussed her murder and accident in the abandoned East Wing. When they left, she dropped silently to the floor. Her cover was blown. But now she knew this wasn't just corruption. They were selling something called merchandise. And somehow, she was it. Tonight, they would hunt her. They had no idea they'd just declared war on a ghost. What was taking them so long? The East Wing smelled of dust and old concrete, the air dry enough to make every breath scratch her throat. The walls were scarred, peeling from decades of neglect, and the faint creak of settling beams sounded like the place resented her presence. She had been here for 20 minutes, crouched behind a section of collapsed wall, watching her tripwires glint faintly in her night vision goggles. Thought it was supposed to be simple. They'd send Rodriguez and Harrison, or maybe one or two of their loyal lapdogs, lure her in with a fake message from Sarah Martinez, stage a tragic accident in the building everyone knew was unstable. They'd carry out her body before dawn, and tell the academy she'd been reckless, clean, quiet, but they weren't here yet. Instead, she heard footsteps, not 2 sets, 3, then 5, coming from different directions. Maya's pulse tightened, not with fear but recognition. The sound was wrong. These weren't cocky instructors playing soldier. This was a tactical formation, coordinated, silent, exact. She counted them in her head from the subtle differences in pace and weight. 6, maybe more. Through the faint hiss of her earpiece, a whisper crackled. Not her own channel. She'd been ghosting there since she got here. Viper 1, north. Corridor secure. Viper 2, east stairwell in position. Viper 3, basement access clear. Professional. The kind of operators you didn't meet unless you were already in trouble. Target is in the central chamber, came Rodriguez's voice over comms. Remember, alive. The buyers want her breathing. The word hit her like a flash grenade. Buyers. The merchandise wasn't data or weapons. It was. Her breath stayed slow, but her thoughts moved fast. Phantom Division's existence wasn't just classified. It was myth to most of the military. If foreign handlers knew she was here, they wouldn't just kill her. They'd strip her down to information and burn the rest. That meant safe houses, operative identities, missions, all blown. Thousands of lives at risk. She scanned her routes. South exit looked the least covered. She moved, keeping low, weight on the edges of her boots to keep from sounding heavier. Then the dust settling. She made it halfway down the corridor before a shape filled the space ahead. Marcus Webb. He wasn't wearing cadet fatigues anymore. The assault rifle in his hands looked like it belonged to someone who'd lived with it. His shoulders were relaxed, his stance perfect. "Hello, Maya," he said softly. Then, like twisting a knife, or should I say Lieutenant Chun of Phantom Division? She kept her hands loose at her sides, posture compliant. "I don't know what you're talking about." He smiled sharp, predatory. The helpless act was good. I almost bought it. But my handlers? They're better than that. Chinese Ministry of State Security's been tracking Phantom Division for years, waiting for someone like you to walk into our hands. Chinese. Her eyes flicked to the watch on his wrist, the same one that had seemed out of place weeks ago. Not a gift from a proud parent. Payment. How? She asked, taking half a step forward. He didn't move his rifle, but she saw the tightening in his grip. Your performance in that simulation. Those moves don't exist in any standard manual. My handlers ran the footage. Matched it to a Phantom Division op in Syria 3 years ago. That operative was supposed to be dead. Guess not. Another step. She was in striking distance, but not close enough to make it clean. "So, what happens now?" she asked. "Torture. Me for information? Eventually, but first." He tilted the barrel toward a side chamber. "Move." She turned slowly, then exploded into motion. Her left hand batted the rifle barrel aside as her right shot toward his throat. He twisted away with practiced speed, slamming the butt of the weapon toward her head. She ducked under, drove her knee toward his gut, but he caught her leg and used her momentum to throw her into the wall. The concrete met her skull in a burst of white stars. He was panting now, not from exhaustion, but excitement. "Not bad. But I've been training for this. Your weaknesses?" "Size. Weight. In a straight fight, you lose." Blood coated her teeth when she smiled. "You're right. I'd lose. If I fought fair." The blast behind him was deafening. Marcus spun. instincts taking over, and she struck. Her hand found the nerve cluster at his neck, paralyzing his right arm. Her other hand slammed into his kidney hard enough to fold him. The rifle clattered to the floor. "You made another mistake," she said, keeping the weapon trained on him. "You assumed I was here alone." His eyes narrowed. "My partner's been watching since the start," she continued, "feeding me your team's positions, timing that pressure plate." Right on cue, controlled bursts of gunfire echoed through the east wing. Professional, precise, final. We've known about Blackwater's leaks for months. My job wasn't just to find traitors, it was to collapse the whole network. "You're just the first brick." Marcus tried to speak, but only managed a strangled gasp. She crouched beside him. "We don't just kill people, Marcus. We make them disappear. So completely, their own mothers forget they existed." The gunfire faded. Footsteps approached measured, steady. Her partner's signal. "And sometimes," she added quietly, "we make them wish they'd never been born." The semester's final combat simulation was designed to crush morale. Operation Nightfall had been a failure for 15 years straight. Hostage rescue, 20 armed hostiles, 30-minute time limit. Not one cadet team had ever completed it. Maya stood with her 5-person squad, eyes on the holographic map. She kept her face anxious, her shoulders drawn in. The past month, since Marcus's accident, she'd been careful to keep the act alive. Officially, he was in a military hospital. Unofficially, he was somewhere very far from sunlight. Brad Morrison, square-jawed and riding his grandfather's Medal of Honor reputation, gave her the point position. A calculated insult. "Try not to get us all killed in the first 30 seconds." Above the simulation floor, the observation deck was packed. Instructors, Pentagon brass. And in the front row, a silver-haired woman in an expensive suit Maya didn't recognize. The controller's voice echoed. "Operation Nightfall begins in 60 seconds. Lethal force authorized." Maya's team took positions. Morrison split them into 2 flanking groups, leaving her to create a distraction at the main gate. It was exactly what she needed. Simulation commencing. The defenders opened fire immediately, non-lethal rounds that still hit like a hammer. 1 cadet went down within seconds. "Abort?" Park's voice cracked over comms. "Negative," Morrison said. "Chun, start your distraction." She walked toward the gate, holding her rifle like it was too heavy. Targeting lasers peppered her chest. She heard whispers in the observation deck, the anticipation of watching her fail. She smiled, and then she moved. A forward roll under the primary gun emplacement, rifle snapping up to take out a sniper no one thought she could see. Movement so fast the AI's targeting lagged behind. Grenade caught midair, sent back into the enemy cluster. She was inside the compound before her team even reacted. Every step calculated, every strike exact. 5 hostiles down in seconds, each falling like dominoes under a hand that knew exactly where to push. In the observation deck, someone whispered, "That's not possible." The AI adapted, repositioning defenders. She adapted faster, using the environment itself, collapsing a wall onto a squad, reprogramming security turrets to target their own men. When she reached the hostage bunker, the defenses were impossible for anyone else. She scaled the wall in seconds, bypassing every firing angle. Smoke poured from the vents, scrambling sensors. She dropped in behind the guards. "Hostages secure," she said into her comm. Timer, 12 minutes, 37 seconds. A record by more than 5 minutes, but she didn't extract. She hunted. When the simulation ended, all 20 hostiles were down. In the observation deck, the silver-haired woman leaned toward Harrison. "We need to talk about Cadet Chun." Maya looked up at them and waved. The mask had slipped. The real game was about to begin. Why wasn't he speaking? The silence in Colonel Harrison's office pressed down like the desert heat outside, thick and suffocating. Maya sat across from him in a deep leather chair, hands folded in her lap, her posture the picture of a confused cadet who didn't know why she'd been summoned. But under the surface, she was measuring the distance to the door, cataloging the objects in arm's reach that could be turned into weapons, calculating probabilities that all ended badly if she had to fight her way out. Harrison hadn't said a word in 3 full minutes. He just stared at her, elbows resting on the desk, a manila folder marked with classification stamps resting between them like a loaded weapon. When he finally moved, it was to pick up a remote. The wall-mounted screen behind him came to life. Footage from yesterday's simulation flickered into view. She watched herself move through the compound smooth, precise, surgical. A phantom made flesh. Do you know what the previous record was for Operation Nightfall? Harrison asked, his voice too calm. Maya shook her head. 18 minutes, he said. Set by a Navy SEAL team during a demonstration. Operators, with multiple combat deployments. And yet, you. He paused the video, the still frame catching her mid-vault over the bunker wall. You use tactics identical to theirs. Identical. I got lucky, she said. Adrenaline. Harrison's laugh was bitter. Adrenaline? He clicked to another file. Grainy night vision filled the screen, someone moving through the abandoned East Wing weeks ago. Moving with inhuman grace. The night Marcus Webb had his accident, Harrison said. This footage was automatically purged the next morning. Routine system sweep. But I had a backup made. He looked at her. That person moves exactly like you did yesterday. Maya kept her face neutral, her body language small. He stood, walked to the window, watched cadets running PT on the grounds below. I've worked with special forces, black ops, intelligence operatives. I know what a real killer looks like. He turned. And you, Cadet Chun, are the most dangerous person I've ever encountered. Sir, I don't know what. Stop, Harrison snapped. We both know what you are. The question is why you're here. She held his gaze. I'm here to serve my country. He opened the folder. Maya Chun, age 19, from Portland, Oregon. Father deceased. Mother, a nurse. No military background. Average grades. Accepted to Blackwater on a diversity scholarship no one can explain. He slid a photograph across the desk. A young girl, maybe 8 years old, with her face but softer, untouched by violence. This is the real Maya Chun. She died 6 months ago in a car accident with her parents. Her eyes flicked down just long enough to register the image. Phantom Division's forgers were good, but apparently not perfect. So who are you? Harrison asked. CIA? NSA? Some black program I've never heard of? She didn't answer. After yesterday, I made some calls, he said. Asked some very careful questions. One name came up, a name so classified most people think it's a myth. Her heartbeat slowed. Phantom Division. He was studying her face now, searching for the slightest tell. She gave him nothing. Officially, it doesn't exist, he continued. No budget, no personnel files, no records. Unofficially, the most elite unit in the world, trained from childhood. Authority beyond anything in the conventional military. Ghosts. Her training screamed to keep denying, but his tone wasn't accusation, it was respect. The woman in the observation deck yesterday, she said, her voice low. Who was she? Harrison's eyebrows lifted a fraction. Deputy Director Sarah Vance, Defense Intelligence Agency. She's been tracking unusual activities at military academies. Security breaches, disappearances, training accidents that don't add up. And you think I'm part of that effort? Maya asked. No. he said without hesitation. I think you're here to stop it. Something in the air shifted. The night Marcus was injured, Harrison said. 3 other cadets disappeared. Officially, they transferred. Unofficially, they vanished. No forwarding address, no contact, no digital footprint. Maya didn't move, but her mind noted the detail. Then there are the finances, Harrison went on. Equipment purchases that don't match inventory. Communication systems far beyond what an academy needs. Training scenarios designed to identify and recruit specific students. And this, he pulled a small device from his desk drawer and set it on the table between them, a listening bug. Military grade. I found this in my office. It wasn't transmitting to a foreign service. It was sending to a server farm in Virginia that officially doesn't exist. She stared at it, feeling the jolt of recognition. Her own equipment turned against her. So here's what I think. Harrison said. Phantom Division knew Blackwater was compromised. They sent you in under deep cover to investigate and gather intel while everyone thought you were a failure. She stayed silent, and that was answer enough. The question. Now, Harrison said, leaning forward, is what happens next. Vance wants to meet you. I suspect your handlers want to pull you out before that happens. Her voice was barely above a whisper. What do you want, Colonel? He smiled for the first time. Justice for the cadets who disappeared, for the secrets sold, for the betrayal. He unlocked a wall safe she hadn't noticed before, pulling out files and photographs. I've been investigating for months, but I'm one man with limited reach. You have the most powerful intelligence unit in the world. She studied his face, searching for deception. There was none. If I were hypothetically part of such an organization, she said carefully, what would you want in return? Bring them down, Harrison said. I don't care how, even if it can't be acknowledged. Her decision was made. Then we need to have a very different conversation, she said. Yes, Harrison replied. We do. Outside cadets jogged under the blazing sun, unaware the ground beneath their feet had just shifted. The hunter had found an ally, and the hunted were about to learn their prey had teeth. The secure conference room in the academy's basement was colder than the desert air outside. Fluorescent light painted sharp shadows over the table. Harrison sat across from her, and at the head Sarah Vance. Maya was out of her cadet uniform now. Civilian clothes, dark jeans, black sweater. Boots that looked plain but held enough hidden steel and polymer to turn them into weapons. Without the loose fatigues, her frame showed for what it was lean. Precise muscle. Let's start with the basics, Vance said. Name, rank, operational designation. Lieutenant Maya Chun, Phantom Division, Wraith 7. Vance didn't blink. Mission parameters? Infiltrate Blackwater. Identify and neutralize the security breach. Gather evidence of foreign infiltration. Eliminate hostile assets. Eliminate, Harrison repeated. Not capture, not arrest. Phantom Division doesn't take prisoners, Colonel. We solve problems permanently. Vance's eyes didn't leave hers. How many problems have you solved since arriving? Primary target, Marcus Webb, Chinese MSS asset, embedded 4 years, currently in a black site. Instructor Rodriguez, secondary asset, recruited through financial leverage, terminated 2 weeks ago. Harrison's face tightened. Terminated? Officially, a climbing accident. Unofficially, an execution. He was selling operative identities. 3 CIA assets dead in Eastern Europe. A Navy SEAL team ambushed in Syria. The air in the room felt heavier. What about the other missing cadets? Vance asked. That's where it gets bigger, Maya said. Rodriguez and Webb were foot soldiers. The real operation is called Project Prometheus, joint Chinese and Russian infiltration of the American military. Sleeper agents in key positions. Decades-long covers. She activated the holographic display. An organizational chart bloomed in midair, names and lines crisscrossing like a web. Blackwater's a recruitment hub. Its graduates go everywhere: command, intel, special forces. Compromise them young, and you own them for life. Harrison's voice was low. How many are compromised? 17 confirmed. Likely more. The missing cadets weren't kidnapped. They were recruited. Money, blackmail, ideology. Some volunteered. Where are they now? Vance asked. Dead, mostly. The rest? New identities in China or Russia. Once their usefulness ends, they're erased. The chart shifted to building. Schematics. Blackwater was built with backdoor server rooms transmitting to Beijing since day one. Psychological evaluations designed to profile for recruitment. Even the curriculum normalizes moral flexibility. You're saying the academy is a foreign operation in disguise, Vance said flatly. Not just this one. The whole elite military academy network. Harrison shook his head. Oversight, inspections, background checks. How could this happen? Because the oversight is compromised, Maya said. Deputy Secretary of Defense Morrison, General Patricia Webb, Admiral James Walsh, all feeding intel through their children here. This isn't just stealing secrets, it's shaping U.S. military policy to benefit our enemies. Vance was scanning the chart like she could memorize it. How did Phantom Division even connect the dots? It took years. The common thread was every compromised operation involved graduates from academies like this. We started embedding operatives. I'm the 7th to try Blackwater. The other 6 are dead. Accidents. Harrison's jaw was tight. And you survived because I let them know just enough to be afraid of me. Not everything. Enough to turn the trap around. She brought up footage of the East Wing fight. Marcus going down, her moving through shadow like she belonged to it. Marcus gave us the rest names, locations, funding channels, the entire network. Vance's voice was sharp. So what's the plan? No arrests, no headlines, Maya said. Too much classified. Too much risk of waking other sleeper cells. Over the next 6 months, every compromised asset will suffer an accident. Car crash, heart failure, training mishap, all untraceable. You're talking about assassinating American citizens. Harrison said, I'm talking about removing traitors who've killed Americans and sold out their country, Maya replied. The legal system can't touch this. We can. She stood, walked to the window, looking down at cadets drilling in the yard. Once you know what we're going to do, Colonel, you're part of it. No going back. Harrison looked at the chart. Again, the names of friends, mentors, people he trusted. Finally, he said, What do you need from me? Her eyes met his. Keep being the honorable soldier you've always been. Leave the rest to the ghosts. Outside, the desert sun was beginning to set, and the real hunt was about to begin. How do you erase 17 people from existence without anyone noticing? That was the question she carried like a second heartbeat for the next 6 months. Not in a poetic sense, literally. It was constant, steady, unshakable. The mission was always there, between every breath, behind every word spoken at morning roll call, shadowing every harmless conversation in the mess hall. The day after the meeting with Harrison and Sarah Vance, the first name on the list vanished. It wasn't messy. No gunfire, no screaming, no loose ends. Lieutenant Jason Kepler, instructor in small unit tactics, had been a decorated veteran of Fallujah. He also had a bank account in Hong Kong that received monthly deposits from a company. That didn't exist. The official story. Kepler had suffered a tragic climbing fall in Arizona over the weekend. The unofficial truth. Maya had been waiting at the top, and his safety line had been swapped for one that would fray after 100 feet of descent. It broke exactly when she intended it to. No. One at the academy suspected a thing. The method was always the same: choose something believable, tailor it to the target's life, remove the variables that could lead to exposure. Her Phantom Division training had drilled it into her until it was reflex. Sometimes it was a heart attack during PT, easy enough with the right chemicals slipped into an energy drink. Sometimes it was a highway accident caused by a brake line cut so precise it looked like normal wear. She didn't work alone. Harrison quietly provided cover, shifting schedules, delaying reports, sending people where they needed to be so she could work. Vance fed her intel from Washington financial records, travel patterns, encrypted comms intercepts. The bodies kept falling. By the third month, the names weren't just people she'd read about in classified briefings. They were faces she saw every day. Cadets who'd laughed at her in the early weeks. Instructors who'd rolled their eyes when she asked questions in class. She knew their habits, their favorite drinks, the songs they hummed without thinking. And still, when the time came, she removed them without hesitation. Almost thought the eighth name on the list was different. Cadet Sarah Martinez. Sarah wasn't a traitor in the classic sense. She hadn't sold secrets, hadn't taken farm money. Her crime was loyalty to the wrong person. Her older brother, a former Army Ranger, had been compromised years ago in Afghanistan and now worked quietly as a facilitator for Russian DRU assets. When the network needed a fresh recruit, he pointed them to Sarah. Maya watched her for weeks before deciding what to do. Sarah was too good to be wasted. Marksman's eye, steady hands, the kind of grit you couldn't fake. But she was also vulnerable. If the GRU came calling, she'd answer. Killing her would be easy. Convincing Phantom Division to spare her would not. One evening, during a desert navigation exercise, Maya made her move. She let their squad drift ahead until only Sarah was close. You ever wonder why they put you in this class? Maya asked, stepping over a sand ridge. Sarah frowned. Because I tested well enough? That's what they told you. Sarah stopped walking. What are you saying? I'm saying someone wants you here for a reason that has nothing to do with your test scores. Sarah's eyes narrowed. You know something. I know you're better than this place, Maya said. Better than the people pulling your strings. But if you stay, they'll use you up until there's nothing left. Sarah studied her. You talk like you've been there. I have, Maya said. Thought it was the first time she'd let anyone in on the edges of the truth. Not the full story, not the division, not the list, not the mission. Just enough to plant the seed. 2 weeks later, Sarah Martinez resigned from the academy, citing family health issues. Harrison made sure her file was buried so deep it would never be found. Maya had bent the rules. She knew it. But she also knew Sarah was worth saving. By the 5th month, the list was almost clear. 17 names had become 3. The final trio were the most dangerous. They weren't cadets or instructors. They were senior brass-decorated, respected, untouchable. General Patricia Webb, Admiral James Walsh, and Deputy Secretary of Defense Morrison. They'd built the network. They'd shaped policy, steer funding, placed assets where they could do the most damage. Removing them would send ripples across the military and political landscape, and they were all coming to Blackwater for the graduation ceremony. It was the perfect opportunity. And the most dangerous. The morning of graduation, the academy grounds looked nothing like the training crucible Maya had lived in for the past year. Flags hung from every building. Families in their best clothes milled between rows of white folding chairs. The parade ground gleamed under the desert sun. Maya wore her dress uniform like a disguise. She stood in formation with the rest of her class, eyes forward, expression neutral. But every movement around her was calculated. Harrison was in the reviewing stand playing his part. Vance was somewhere in the crowd, watching everything through the kind of eyes that miss nothing. Her targets arrived one by one. General Webb first tall. Crisp uniform, a chest full of medals. She shook hands with the commandant, smiling like she hadn't been selling strategic missile placement plans to the Chinese for a decade. Admiral Walsh, next naval whites glowing under the sun, his posture so straight it looked painful. He had a quiet arrogance, the kind of man who thought rules were for other people. And finally Morrison, perfect hair, perfect suit, perfect lie of a public servant. The crowd loved him. He loved himself more. They sat in the front row. The speeches began long, self-congratulatory, designed for cameras. Maya's attention never left the trio. When the moment came, it was almost boring. General Webb's champagne at the post-ceremony reception was poured from a bottle that had been in the cooler all morning. Walsh's seafood plate came from the serving line nearest the kitchen. Morrison's handshake lingered just long enough for the thin, transdermal patch to adhere to the skin between his thumb and forefinger. All three were dead within 72 hours. Heart attack, stroke, sudden aneurysm. The headlines were filled with grief. The investigations found nothing unusual. Phantom Division found everything exactly as planned. 2 weeks later, Maya stood alone on the same parade ground where she'd once been laughed at. The wind was hot, carrying the faint smell of dust and bile. The flags were gone now, the chairs packed away. Harrison walked up beside her. "It's done." She nodded. "They'll send someone to pull you out tomorrow," he said. "Officially, you're being discharged for medical reasons. Unofficially, you'll be halfway to your next assignment before anyone notices you've gone." "What happens to the academy?" she asked. "It'll survive. The system will heal. And there'll be another one like you when it doesn't." She looked at him. "You think I made a difference?" He smiled faintly. "I think you were the difference." A black SUV pulled up at the far end of the grounds. Vance stepped out, sunglasses hiding her eyes. She didn't wave, didn't smile, just gave the smallest nod. Maya took one last look at the place. The memories weren't sentimental, too much blood in the foundation for that. But they were hers. "Sometimes," she said quietly, "the ghosts don't leave." Then she walked toward the SUV, and the desert swallowed her footsteps. Why did the desert still feel like it was under her skin? 2 months had passed since Blackwater. 2 months since 17 names had been wiped from the system as if they'd never lived. And yet, when Maya closed her eyes at night, she still saw the parade ground, still heard the echo of boots on hot asphalt, still caught the faint scent of oil and gunpowder in her dreams. Phantom Division didn't believe in downtime, but they did believe in silence. They called it ghost air, the time between missions when you weren't supposed to exist. No contact, no paperwork, no proof you'd ever been alive. She'd spent most of that time in a rented cabin in the mountains of Montana. No neighbors for miles, no cell signal, only the sound of wind in the pines and the occasional distant crack of rifle fire when she went to the range she'd built out of scrap metal and plywood. But the ghosts didn't leave. They never did. Her extraction officer had told her it was normal. Phantom operatives were trained to live in the shadows. But shadows left stains. The trick, he'd said, was not to mistake them for company. That advice didn't help much. The call came on a Wednesday. It wasn't a phone. Not exactly a small encrypted transceiver that looked like an old MP3 player, buried in a drawer under a stack of flannel shirts. The screen lit with a single word. Move. No coordinates. No briefing. Just a time 060 the next morning and a G's location that meant nothing to anyone but her. The location turned out to be an abandoned airstrip in eastern Wyoming. The tarmac was cracked and lined with weeds. A single hangar stood at the far end, its metal walls sun-bleached and rusted. She arrived before dawn, the cold biting through her jacket. Her duffel was light, 2 changes of clothes, a custom-modified Sig Sauer, and a knife she'd carried since her first deployment. The hangar door groaned open as she approached. Inside was Sarah Vance, standing beside a matte black helicopter, with no tail markings. "You look well," Vance said. "I'm functional," Maya replied. "That'll do." Vance handed her a folder. "You're being pulled for a priority 1. Maya flipped it open. The target dossier was too thin for her liking. A single photograph of a man in his 40s, sharp suit, sharper eyes. Dr. Leonid Markov, Russian-born, naturalized American citizen, defense contractor with high-level clearance. "What's the play?" Maya asked. Vance's expression didn't change. Markov's been selling classified quantum communications tech to both Moscow and Beijing. The kind of tech that makes nuclear command systems invisible to detection. If it goes live, first strike warnings become meaningless. Where? Singapore. He's attending a closed-door defense summit. You'll be posing as security for a friendly delegate. Maya closed the folder. Extraction? Vance hesitated. "We don't have one yet." That was new. Phantom Division. Never sent an operative in without an exit plan. Meaning? Maya pressed. "Meaning you'll have to make one," Vance said. "Markov doesn't travel alone. He's protected by at least 3 private security teams, all ex-Spetsnaz. And there's another variable, your cover contact." She handed Maya a second photograph. Sarah Martinez. Maya froze. "She's working freelance security now," Vance said. "Legit jobs." But her name came up as an available contractor for this summit. "We slotted her into your op." "That's not protocol," Maya said flatly. "No, it's not. But she's a known quantity, and she trusts you." "She thinks I'm just another cadet who washed out," Maya said. Vance's tone was like glass. "Then you'd better decide how much truth to give her before the shooting starts." The summit was being held in a luxury high-rise overlooking Marina Bay. The air in Singapore was thick and heavy, the kind that clung to your skin and never let go. The streets below were a blur of traffic and neon, a far cry from the silent mountains of Montana. Maya wore a tailored black suit, earpiece tucked discreetly behind her hair, the badge of a high-end private security firm clipped to her belt. Sarah Martinez stood at her side, scanning the crowd with the same careful precision Maya remembered from Blackwater. "You've been quiet," Sarah said. "Eyes still moving, observing," Maya replied. Sarah smirked faintly. "Same old chun. Always in your head." Maya let it pass. Markov arrived precisely at 1400, flanked by 6 men in dark suits. They moved like soldiers, their eyes always scanning, their hands never far from their jackets. Maya and Sarah fell into the perimeter without drawing attention, blending into the sea of security. The plan was simple on paper: tag Markov with a tracker, gather enough evidence of his dealings to justify an off-the-books termination, and then remove him before he could disappear. But in the Phantom Division, nothing was ever as simple as it looked on paper. By the end of the first day, Maya knew 2 things. Markov was cautious to the point of paranoia, and Sarah was starting to suspect something. "You move like you've done this before," Sarah said quietly as they left the ballroom that night. "Private security's private security," Maya said. Sarah studied her for a long moment. "Yeah, sure." On the second day, the opportunity came. Markov slipped away from the main conference after lunch, heading for a private suite on the 35th floor. Maya followed at a distance, Sarah covering the rear. Inside the suite, Markov met with 2 men Maya recognized instantly: Gru handlers, ghosts from another lifetime. She recorded every word through a directional mic concealed in her jacket. The deal was already in motion. Delivery of prototype tech in exchange for gold bullion, untraceable and unmarked. She was about to signal Sarah to block the exit when everything went wrong. One of the handlers glanced toward the suite door. "We're not alone." Maya moved. Fast, but not fast enough. The first shot shattered the glass coffee table. The second grazed her arm. Sarah dove for cover, returning fire with a precision that made Maya's chest tighten. The fight was over in under 30 seconds. Both handlers were down. Markov was gone. Sarah's eyes were blazing. "You knew," she said. "You knew this was going to happen." Maya didn't answer. She just reloaded. They found Markov in the service corridors, trying to reach a private elevator to the underground garage. His bodyguards bought him 20 more seconds of life. Maya took them apart with brutal efficiency. When it was just the two of them, she didn't give him a speech. Didn't tell him why. She just put a suppressed round through his sternum and walked away. Sarah caught up with her in the garage. "Who the hell are you, Chun?" Maya stopped, turned. Someone who does the jobs no one else can admit exist. Sarah's voice was low. "You saved my life back there." Maya shook her head. "No, I delayed your death. Big difference." The extraction wasn't elegant. They left Singapore the way ghosts always did, through doors no one else could see, on planes that didn't appear on any flight plans. Sarah didn't ask where they were going. Maya didn't offer. When they landed in a safe house in southern Spain, Vance was waiting. The debrief was short. Markov's death would destabilize the tech transfer long enough for Phantom Division to dismantle the rest of the network. As Vance left, Sarah lingered in the doorway. "You going to disappear again?" Maya met her eyes. "That's what ghosts do." Sarah nodded slowly. "Then I hope one day I'm one too." Maya didn't answer. She just turned back to the window, watching the sea roll against the shore, wondering if there was a version of this life where the ghost didn't win, and knowing she'd never live long enough to see it. What happens when you save someone who wants to follow you into the shadows? That question trailed Maya like a second shadow in the weeks after Singapore. Sarah Martinez hadn't gone home. She hadn't returned to her comfortable, above-board contracts guarding corporate CEOs and celebrity clients. Instead, she'd stayed, quietly, deliberately. At first, Maya thought it was coincidence. Two contractors lingering in the same safehouse network, moving between the same ghost airports, taking the same cover jobs. But by the third week, it was obvious. Sarah wasn't leaving because she didn't want to, and that was dangerous. Phantom Division didn't recruit. They harvested. The ones who made it in were survivors of something unspeakable, shaped into operatives by necessity and trauma. Sarah was good, better than most, but she hadn't been broken yet, and breaking her. Maya didn't want that on her conscience. The next assignment came sooner than expected. A dead drop in Valencia yielded a secure tablet with the kind of encryption that would fry itself if someone stared at it wrong. Inside was a single file. Target: General Augusto Ramirez. Location: Bogota, Colombia. Offense: selling you satellite defense algorithms to a South American cartel, who in turn were bartering them to a Chinese military liaison. Status: termination. Authorized. Maya didn't flinch at the name. She recognized it from Blackwater briefings. Ramirez wasn't just dirty. He was a rot that spread. He'd been moving between military posts in Latin America for over a decade, always untouchable, because he served as a bridge between political factions too powerful to offend. The mission parameters were tight. Ramirez would be attending a private party at a fortified hillside estate outside Bogota. The guest list was short: cartel leadership, corrupt officers, a few government officials whose public images were squeaky clean but whose bank accounts told another story. One problem: his personal security detail was nearly impenetrable. Two problems: Maya had already been paired with a local contractor for the job. The file's attached image confirmed what she already feared. Sarah Martinez. "You could have said no," Maya told her 3 days later. As they sat in a rented SUV overlooking the city, Sarah's hands rested on the steering wheel, but her eyes were on Maya. And missed the chance to see what you really do? Not a chance. You think you want this, Maya said, voice flat. You don't. Sarah smiled faintly. That's what you said in Singapore, but here we are. Maya didn't argue. The clock was ticking. They began with surveillance. The estate was walled on 3 sides by steep jungle, the 4th by a sheer cliff face. Motion sensors along the perimeter. Armed guards in pairs on predictable patrols. Cameras in overlapping arcs. But the weakness wasn't in the walls, it was in the guests. Every VIP entering the party passed through a single choke point, the main gate, where their vehicles were scanned, their credentials verified, their entourages checked. Ramirez's convoy would arrive precisely at 21:15, according to Vance's intercepts. That gave them exactly 39 seconds of chaos when his motorcade stopped for inspection. 39 seconds to breach the perimeter, get inside the house, and take him before his men realized the attack wasn't coming from outside, that it was suicide for anyone who didn't live in the Phantom Division's world. Sarah didn't blink. When Maya explained it, tell me where you want me. The night of the op, the city's lights glowed like embers in the valley below. From their vantage point in the jungle, the estate looked peaceful, almost serene. The music drifting from the party masked the tension in the air. Maya moved first, cutting the outer motion sensors with a device the size of a cigarette lighter. Sarah followed, her movements clean and quiet. No wasted steps. No hesitation. When Ramirez's convoy approached, Maya slid into the shadows by the gate, Sarah positioning herself near the inspection bay. The signal was simple, a flash of Maya's wrist light. Barely visible, masked by the glare of the spotlights overhead. At 21:15 exactly, the convoy rolled to a stop. 39 seconds. Sarah engaged first, stepping into the blind spot between 2 cameras and dropping the front escort guard with a suppressed shot to the leg. He went down without a sound. She was already moving before he hit the ground, yanking him out of sight. Maya slipped past the second guard, a blade flashing in the dark. His radio died with him. Inside the gate, the chaos began. Shouts, confusion, the convoy bottlenecked. Maya and Sarah were already halfway to the villa's main doors before anyone realized there was no outside attack. They found Ramirez in his private study, exactly where Vance had predicted. He was seated at a massive mahogany desk, sipping something expensive, his eyes going wide as the door slammed open. Maya Chun, he said in accented English, leaning back in his chair. Phantom Division. He knew. Then you know how this ends, she replied. Ramirez smiled faintly. Everyone dies. But not tonight. His hand moved under the desk. Sarah was faster. Her round shattered the wood, forcing him back, his sidearm clattering to the floor. Maya crossed the space between them, pressing the suppressor to his temple. Your network dies with you. He laughed once. Another will rise. Then we'll be there too. The shot was almost gentle. Extraction was messy. The cartel's private army swarmed the estate within minutes of Ramirez's death. Maya and Sarah fought their way back to the cliff face where a rappel line waited, anchored to the jungle canopy below. By the time they reached the safe house, they were covered in sweat, dust, and someone else's blood. Sarah collapsed into a chair, grinning despite the adrenaline crash. You could have done that without me, but you didn't. Maya stripped off her gear. You kept me alive in that study. That's why you were there. Sarah studied her. And if I wanted to stay? Keep doing this? Maya froze. Then I'd have to tell you what it costs. And you'd have to lie to yourself to believe it's worth it. Sarah didn't flinch. Try me. Maya shook her head. You think the missions are the hard part. They're not. It's the quiet after. The months where no one knows your name. The moments where you save someone only to have to kill them later. The people you care about turn into targets, and you're the one holding the gun. For the first time, Sarah's grin faded. That's why I didn't let them recruit you at Blackwater, Maya said. You think you get to decide for me? Sarah asked. I think I'm the only one who's seen what happens to people like you, Maya replied. They sat in silence for a long time, the hum of the safe house's generator the only sound. 3 days later, a new file arrived. Different country, different target. But this time, there were 2 names in the operative slot. Sarah's was one of them. Maya stared at it for a long time before she crushed the tablet in her hands. The circuitry sparking and dying. The division wasn't asking her permission anymore. They were making Sarah a ghost, and Maya knew once you entered the shadows, you didn't come back. What do you do when the only way to save someone is to make them hate you? That thought sat in the back of Maya's mind the moment she saw Sarah's name officially paired with hers. The division hadn't just tested the waters with Bogota. They'd made their decision. Sarah Martinez was no longer an outsider. She was on the path to being shaped, molded, broken, and remade into a phantom operative. And Maya knew exactly what that process would do to her. The mission file was thin. As always, target, Viktor Sokolov, ex-Russian intelligence, now freelancing as a broker for stolen biometric data. Location, Belgrade. Objective, terminate and recover a hard drive containing encrypted DNA markers for hundreds of covert operatives worldwide. If sold, it would compromise missions, cover identities, and the lives of everyone in the shadows. But there was a catch. The intel suggested Sokolov had already arranged to meet a buyer in country. The buyer's identity was unknown. The division's solution: send Maya and Sarah to intercept the exchange, kill both parties, and vanish with the data. On paper, simple. In reality, a nightmare. Belgrade wasn't just another foreign city. It was a chessboard of factions, each with their own shadow games. And Sokolov had a reputation for using the crowd as a shield. They met in Vienna first, a safe city to prep gear and coordinate before heading east. Sarah arrived in a black jacket, her expression somewhere between wary and determined. So, I'm official now? She asked, dropping her duffel by the bed in the safe house. Maya didn't look up from the rifle she was cleaning. You're in their sights, which is worse. Sarah raised an eyebrow. You think I can't handle it? I think once they've got their hooks in you, you won't be able to walk away. And you won't realize it until there's nothing left of you to walk. Sarah leaned against the wall. You talk like you hate what you are. Maya glanced up. I don't hate it. I just wouldn't wish it on anyone I cared about. Sarah's eyes softened for a fraction of a second before she masked it with a smirk. Too late for that, isn't it? Belgrade greeted them with cold rain and the smell of damp concrete. Their cover was as independent corporate investigators, something vague enough to explain their presence, but specific enough to pass light. Scrutiny. The meeting was set for the 3rd night, in an old riverside warehouse repurposed into a high-end art gallery. For 2 days, they shadowed Sokolov. He was always in motion, never walking the same street twice, never eating in the same cafe, always flanked by 2 or 3 large men in street clothes. The only constant was a black leather briefcase handcuffed to his wrist. Classic, Sarah muttered as they watched him from a rooftop across the street. Effective, Maya said. The point isn't the case. It's that, he has. It makes you play your hand early. Sarah frowned. You think the drive's not in there? I think we won't know until we see it. The night of the meeting, the gallery was a glittering display of abstract sculptures and wealthy patrons sipping champagne. Maya wore a sleek black dress, a pistol holstered under her arm. Sarah moved through the crowd in a tailored suit, blending easily, scanning faces. Sokolov arrived fashionably late, dripping confidence and arrogance in equal measure. The buyer was already there, a man in his 60s with the kind of cold eyes you only got from decades in intelligence work. They drifted toward a corner of the gallery, speaking quietly, the briefcase between them. Maya's earpiece clicked once. Sarah's voice, two more at the east exit, both armed. "Copy," Maya murmured. She shifted position, putting herself between Sokolov and the door. Then it happened. The buyer's hand moved toward the briefcase, and the lights went out. Darkness. In an op was never an accident. Gunfire erupted almost instantly, muffled by suppressors. Screams rose from the patrons as they scattered. Maya dropped to a knee, drawing her weapon, her eyes adjusting to the faint emergency lights along the floor. Sokolov was already moving toward the service hallway, the briefcase still chained to his wrist. Maya went after him. Sarah's voice cut through the comms. "I've got the buyer alive." "Keep him that way," Maya ordered. She caught Sokolov halfway down the hall. He spun, firing wildly. The first shot missed her by inches. The second slammed into the wall beside her head. She returned fire, her rounds chewing through the plaster, forcing him to duck. Then she closed the distance, slamming him against the wall, wrenching the briefcase from his hand. He fought like a cornered animal, his elbow catching her ribs, his knee slamming into her thigh. It ended when she drove her knife under his jaw. Quick and clean. By the time she returned to the gallery, Sarah had the buyer cuffed and sitting in a chair, bleeding from a shallow graze on his arm. "Drives in the case?" Sarah asked. Maya popped it open. Inside, a single slim laptop, powered off. "Yeah, but it's not leaving here intact." She pulled a small device from her pocket, attaching it to the USB port. A faint blue light blinked, then went solid. Data wiped. UNRECOVRABL. The buyer watched her with a faint smile. "You think that's the only copy?" Maya ignored him. Back at the safe house, Sarah was uncharacteristically quiet. "You've been holding back," she said finally. Maya looked at her. "From you?" Sarah nodded. "You're trying to keep me from whatever this is, but you also keep me alive. So, which is it? Do you want me here or not?" Maya took a breath. "I want you alive. That's it." Sarah leaned forward. "Then, maybe the way to do that is to stop treating me like a liability and start treating me like a partner." Maya didn't answer. She just looked at her for a long time, weighing every word she could say and everyone she couldn't. Because the truth was simple. Partners didn't last in Phantom Division. One of them always became the other's target eventually. 2 nights later, the division sent a follow-up message. The buyer had been identified as a mole inside a NATO intelligence branch. Orders: terminate. Sarah was the one assigned to pull the trigger. Maya knew then exactly what the division was doing. They weren't just testing Sarah's skill. They were testing how far she'd go down the same road Maya had walked years ago, and Maya had a choice. Let Sarah take the shot, or make herself the reason Sarah didn't become a ghost. What if the only way to protect someone was to betray everything you'd ever served? That was the choice sitting in front of Maya as she stared at the division's final message. Sarah's assignment was clear: terminate the NATO mole in Prague within 72 hours. No room for negotiation, no secondary objective. It was a surgical, clinical order, the kind Phantom Division specialized in. But Maya had seen this before. She remembered the first time they'd given her a soft target to prove she belonged, someone whose death wouldn't shift any battlefield lines, but whose survival would have threatened the division's grip. Once Sarah pulled that trigger, she'd cross a line she couldn't uncross. She'd be theirs. Maya sat in the dim light of the safe house, the message burning in her mind. In the corner, Sarah was quietly field stripping her rifle, oblivious to what this op was really about. Sarah. Maya said finally. Sarah looked up, curious. Yeah? If I told you the target in Prague wasn't what they said, would you believe me? Sarah frowned. What do you mean? I mean, he's not selling secrets to anyone. He's feeding them disinformation. He's a ghost like... He's just working for a different flag. Sarah's hand stilled. Then why kill him? Maya's voice was low. Because he knows too much about the division. Sarah leaned back slowly, studying her. So this is a cleanup job. Tie off loose ends. Maya nodded. And make sure you pull the trigger, so you're tied to them forever. The room went quiet except for the faint hum of the safe house's heater. Sarah didn't speak for a long time. Then, what are you going to do? Maya met her eyes. I'm going to make sure you never get the chance. They arrived in Prague on a slate gray morning, the kind where the cold felt sharp enough to cut. The city was a tangle of cobblestone streets and quiet courtyards, the kind of place where you could disappear if you knew how. The target, Pavel. Kral lived in a nondescript building near the Voltova River. His daily routine was almost painfully ordinary. Morning coffee at a corner cafe, long hours at a desk in his apartment, evening walks through the park. He didn't look like a man who'd ever worn a uniform, let alone played games in the shadows. The division had given Sarah the kill window. Thursday, 1845, in the park. Predictable, controlled, no witnesses. Maya had her own plan. Thursday evening, she left a safe house before Sarah, taking the long route to the park. She found Pavel on his usual bench, feeding crumbs to the pigeons, his breath misting in the air. You know why I'm here, Maya said quietly, sitting down beside him. He didn't look at her. Yes, I was expecting someone else. You were expecting her, Maya said. Of course, Pavel replied. She's the test. Maya felt something twist in her chest. And if she doesn't take the shot? Pavel finally turned, his eyes sharp despite the lines in his face. Then you will. And she becomes the witness. Maya shook her head. No, I'm here to make sure she never sees you fall. Pavel studied her for a long moment, then smiled faintly. Then I hope you're ready to burn the bridge you're standing on. When Sarah arrived, the park was quiet except for the rustle of leaves. She moved with the same calculated precision Maya had taught her, slow, deliberate, no wasted motion. Her rifle came up, the scope settling on Pavel. That was when Maya stepped into her line of fire. Sarah froze. What the hell are you doing? Ending. This, Maya said. Move. No. Maya. Sarah's voice was tight, urgent. If I don't take the shot, they'll know. They already know, Maya said. This isn't about the mission. It's about you. They want to own you. I'm not letting them. Sarah's eyes flicked past her, to Pavel. Then what? Maya glanced at him, then back at her. You walk away. Tonight. Go to the Vienna drop point. There'll be a passport, cash, and a flight. Disappear before they close the net. Sarah's voice cracked. And you? Maya smiled faintly. I'll make them think you pulled the trigger. The shot rang out a second later. It wasn't Sarah's. Pavel slumped forward. On the bench, a neat hole through his temple. Sarah's eyes went wide. No, Maya moved fast, grabbing her by the arm, pulling her into the shadows before the counter-surveillance teams could close in. In the confusion, she shoved the rifle into Sarah's hands. They'll believe you did it. It's the only way you stay alive. Sarah stared at her, realization dawning. They'll come for you. They already have, Maya said. Now go. They split in the alley behind the park. Sarah disappeared into the labyrinth of side streets, headed toward the extraction Maya had arranged without the division's knowledge. Maya didn't run. She knew the division's hunters would be closing in. That was the point. By the time they caught her, She was standing on the edge of the Charles Bridge. The vault of a flowing black beneath her Vance was the one who stepped forward. "You chose her over us." Maya's voice was calm. "I chose her over becoming me." Vance's expression didn't change. "Then you know how this ends." Maya nodded once. "Yeah, but you won't find her." No one ever saw Maya Chun again after that night. Some said she went into deep cover with another agency. Others claimed the division buried her so deep even they forgot where. But Sarah Martinez resurfaced years later alive, working under a new name in a new country. She never spoke about Prague or the woman who'd stood between her and the darkness. Only once, over a quiet drink in a coastal cafe, did she let something slip to an old friend. "She told me once that dignity doesn't speak," Sarah said softly. "It simply acts." And that was all.